So let's talk about the Somalian community in Minnesota and the United States more broadly, because this is something that has become salient since Trump called them out, frankly, saying, well, why are they here? What good are they actually doing to the United States? And that's a great question, because there are only about 260,000 Somalis in the United States anyway, and already they've really made a name for themselves.
Yes.
They've really impressed everyone with the way that they're working. So let's focusing on Minnesota specifically, right? The Somali population of Minnesota is approximately 107,000 out of 5.8 million.
Okay.
So they are a tiny fraction of Minnesota. And of Minneapolis in particular, they're 84,000 out of 425,000. So why are we constantly hearing about Somali nonsense out of Minnesota?
I don't know. Does it have to do with the culture?
Sorry?
Does it have to do with the culture?
I think
Sure, but
reported to the police for saying that not all cultures are equal.
that's the point, right? So they've got Ilhan Omar, they've got Jacob Frey speaking Somalian as he becomes the mayor, but they didn't elect the Somali candidate for mayor because there are just not enough Somalis there to swing the ethnic vote, even though they, of course, overwhelmingly voted for him, and because they're Democrats, and Jacob Frey is a white guy, let's vote for the white guy. And so he's come out and been excessively woke about all of this, which is really funny. And as we go through this, you'll see why this is even funnier, because they are very firmly pinning their 95 theses to the door of the Somali community is nothing but a good thing for Minnesota, which, I mean, that's going to age well, isn't it?
Didn't they do the same thing with Haiti when Trump said that Haiti was an asshole?
Yes, they all went to Haiti and said, this is brilliant.
And then we had barbecue take over.
Yeah, we did. Yeah. But that's the point, isn't it? Like this, because, I mean, it's such tepid thinking. It's like, oh, identity politics, therefore the brown person good and Trump is bad. It's like, okay, but the numbers are in. Like, the numbers are public. Like, anyone can check the numbers, right? So it turns out that Minnesotans are enriched by Somalians to the tune of $67 million in taxes a year. That's good at maths.
A drop in a buck.
You good at maths?
Yeah, generally speaking.
Yeah. What do you reckon that is per Somalian?
Per 200,000?
For 100,000 Somalians.
That's pretty much nothing, right?
Well, it's about
sort of $6 each.
$626 a year.
Yep.
$626 a year in tax. That's what they contribute.
That's.
Well, the question now is,
what do they take out?
What do they take out?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Resource extraction. But they're voting. That's the thing. That's the thing for the Democrats.
They are.
They're exchanging resources for votes.
That is true. But that is a really small amount. And that implies that the Somalians are basically all impoverished, earning only a few grand a year, or maybe something else is going on. Anyway, so it turns out that remittances make up about somewhere between 25 to 45% of Somalia's entire economy.
Is it remittances from the US alone, or is it also from other places?
This is worldwide number. Wow. And this was a few years ago. It's apparently 1.7 billion.
This was 2015.
Yeah, that was in 2015. Now it's somewhere around 1.7 billion, it states in this article. Somewhere. Well, I can't.
And they're not taxed from the US?
The remittances aren't taxed, no. So they send back around 1.7 billion.
How do they pay 667 million in tax and send 1.7 billion? I mean, that is a great question. But remember, the 1.7 billion is from all over the world. Somalia is all over the world. But the point of that being 45% possibly of Somalia's economy. I mean, what is Somalia's economy? It's subsistence agriculture. You're forgetting piracy as a critical contributor.
Well, didn't that get knocked on the head when we started blowing up the pirates?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
It's more or less done now.
Yeah. And if you think about like the infrastructure of Somalia, it was all built during the colonial era.
Yes. I was doing something on Sudan and counted the bridges in all of Sudan, famously all of it being on the Nile. And I think I found less than a dozen in total.
which sort of shows you the extent of now the Nile is a difficult river to bridge.
Sure.
But so is the Rhine, and that was solved rather quickly.
But the point being is that Somalia is a country that is deeply dependent on its diaspora to send money home. It's not doing very well as a country. And so how is the diaspora getting hold of so much money? How is it getting all of this money to send back, given how they only pay $600 a year in taxes? They're not earning that money, are they? I mean, in all of America, the Somali community makes about $500 million a year.
In total.
In total.
That's what they make. Okay.
Yeah. That's why they only commit 67,000 to the treasury.
Right.
Right. It's 583 or something like that. So it's not a matter on the books.
Right.
That's what's on the books.
I mean, I'm not that good with knowledge about that region of Africa, but is it one of those cases where, again, we have NGOs and money coming in, given to warlords or people in government?
No, they have a president. They have a president in Somalia.
Okay.
And a voting system,
Okay.
which I'm
And
sure
Al
is...
Shabaab running half the country.
Oh, there is.
So that's the other point.
But we'll get back to Al-Shabaab in a minute. Anyway, so it's become very apparent that actually there is a massive amount of fraud going on from the Somalian community in Minnesota, which is starting to explain how they got their hands on so much money to send back to Somalia. And this is, of course, a deeply embedded thing in particular, the Somali community. But in fact, many of the foreign communities that have come to live in the West, it is just habitual that they send money home. And Somalia is, of course, deeply dependent on this. And what all of this fraud exposes is the clannish nature of their society. And it's something that we in the West, the Western liberal individuals, do not understand. And we don't understand why this would be such a widespread problem in that community. But I'm gonna just read from this New York Times article for a minute, because it's just even the New York Times is like, guys, I think this might be a bit indefensible.
Yep.
Listen to this. The fraud scandal that rattled Minnesota was staggering in its scale and brazenness. How is it the entire community could be so brazen?
Okay.
That's the question, because of course if Stelios, you or I, were committing fraud, we would expect the people around us to be like, oh my God, he's committing fraud.
Yeah.
Right, I'm going to report that to the government.
Right.
I'm going to do the right thing and stop him from defrauding people. But for some reason, that just wasn't something that the Somalians in Minnesota thought to do.
Could it be a different us versus them mentality?
I think it might be, and I think that's where the brazenness comes in.
But also, I think there has to be an issue with checking.
Yeah.
Because there is an atmosphere of impunity coming from leftist, let's say, politicians with respect to their preferred groups.
Yes, but you remember the leftist politicians and the preferred groups in the case of, say, Minnesota are not different. Ilhan Omar is a part of the preferred group.
Yes.
Like these people are,
Yeah.
one and the same in many cases. So anyway, federal prosecutors charged dozens of people with felonies, accusing them of stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from a government program meant to keep children fed during the COVID-19 pandemic. At first, many in the state saw the cases as one-off abuse against during a health emergency. But as new schemes targeting the state's generous safety net programs came to light, state and federal officials began to grapple with the jarring reality. Over the last 5 years, law enforcement officials say, fraud took root in pockets of Minnesota's Somali diaspora, as scores of individuals made fortunes by setting up companies that build state agencies for millions of dollars worth of social services that were just never provided. Federal prosecutors say that 59 people, and this, again, 100,000 people in total, and they've already prosecuted 59 people for this,
Right.
have been convicted in those schemes so far, and that more than $1 billion of taxpayer money has been stolen in only 3 plots that they are investigating.
So they're paying $67 million in taxes, and
They
they've
scammed
gotten
$1
a
billion.
billion. Okay.
And the thing is,
That's
we have the habit of trying to individualize this. So, oh, right, we caught the person involved. We caught that person involved.
Yes.
We caught that person involved. It's like, that's not how that community works. Nothing in that community is individual. Everything is a collective group effort. And this is what the West needs to understand about this particular community and other communities like it, right? And I'm going to read now, just verbatim, from the Minnesota State Attorney's Office about just one of these cases. And it is
I'm not going to swear, but it is remarkable. It is absolutely remarkable. So this is a case of Asha Farhan Hassan, 28, who was charged by federal information with wire fraud in her role in a $14 million autism fraud scheme. She was also charged in the Feeding Our Future fraud scheme, which we'll cover in a minute, for nearly $500,000 out of that. But from November 2019, and you notice that, so that's before COVID, it's not just the government opens the coffers and the Somalis are like, well, I mean, why not just fill our pockets with that? Yep. No, this is before that. This is, the government gives out money. Well, we can get that money. So before COVID in 2019, Hassan and others devised a scheme and carried out a scheme to defraud the EIDBI Autism Services Program. They formed and registered Smart Therapy LLC with the Minnesota Secretary of State in 2019. Hassan listed herself as the only owner of Smart Therapy. In reality, though, other individuals also had ownership stakes in Smart Therapy, but were just not listed on the documents. Don't need to do that because you are my cousin, you are my brother, you are,
Yep.
This is all a deeply connected clan of people operating.
And odds are the people behind this used a female knowing that a black female would have a more favorable treatment from the powers that be because of all of the DEI nonsense.
They may not be academically gifted, but they're not stupid. They know how you work, right?
They are politically gifted. I mean, this is part of
they're politically
functioning
savvy
in a tribal culture.
Yep, you have to
requires a deep understanding of the politics and who's in charge of what and what are the rewards and punishments that are involved.
Yes, indeed. And so, Smart Therapy, I'm going to read from the notes. It's easy and scrolling through. Smart Therapy purported to be providing necessary one-on-one ABA therapy to children with autism. In fact, Smart Therapy employed underqualified individuals as behavioral technicians. These behavioral technicians were often 18 or 19-year-old relatives with no formal education beyond high school, no training or certificates related to their treatment of autism. Who could have imagined this?
Yeah. I can imagine them ending up,
Judges.
using their CVs to come on the NHS and working as individual therapists for the NHS.
Or worse, activist judges.
Yeah.
I'm going to try and scroll through just so you can see it. I'm just literally reading verbatim though. About here. From November 2019 through December 2024, I know I read that, but so she did all of these things, obviously.
Hold on, I think I found the segment.
No, let me just go through the whole thing because the whole thing has just got everything in it, right?
Right.
So to run their fraud scheme, Hassan and her partners needed children who had an autism diagnosis and an individual treatment plan. Well, are there that many autistic kids around? There bloody well will be if there's money on the line. Hassan and her partners approached parents in the Somali community to recruit their children into Smart Therapy. Where a child did not have an autism diagnosis and an individual treatment plan, Hassan and her partners worked with a QSP to get the recruited child qualified for autism services. So money will have changed hands.
Wow.
There was no child that Smart Therapy was not able to get qualified for autism services.
Wow. They could get anybody diagnosed with autism.
Apparently.
And then people are critical when we say that, the whole mental health diagnosis industry has a very serious problem.
To be fair, this happens. This happens everywhere. I was in academia. Almost the overwhelming majority of students had some form of autism, according to so-called experts.
Well, that's good because Hassan and her partners submitted millions of dollars worth of claims for Medicaid reimbursement on behalf of Smart Therapy. Many of these claims were fraudulently inflated, if you can believe it, were billed without providers' knowledge, and were for services that were not actually provided. Hassan submitted claims seeking reimbursement for the maximum number of hours permitted by Medicaid for a given treatment or service given to a particular client when the client only received a fraction of the treatment if they were provided any at all. Shameless.
I think the best part that you might be going over this now. As a recruitment tactic to drive up enrollment, Hassan and her partners paid monthly cash kickback payments to the parents of children who enrolled their children in Smart Therapy to receive autism services.
Yes.
So to your point that the whole community was involved,
yes,
they bribed Somali parents to pretend that their children were autistic and then collected far more money from the state.
Yes.
This is the thing that people don't understand about.
Just for anyone, as it says there, these kickbacks ranged from approximately $300 to $1,500 per month per child, right? But the amount of these payments was contingent on services DHS authorized the child to receive. The higher the authorization, the higher the kickback. But often, parents threatened to leave smart therapy and take their children to other autism centers if they did not get paid their higher kickbacks. So the other autism centers must have been also paying. She says several larger families left smart therapy after being offered larger kickbacks from other autism centers. So she isn't the only Somali autism center offering these kickbacks.
So it just very quickly became a cottage industry.
A cottage. I mean, there's $14 million. This one person, like this is genuinely industrial.
Yes.
This isn't someone working out a cottage.
Yes.
Hassan and her partners covered the cost of the kickback payments that they paid through the fraudulent billings to Medicaid. So you can see this is just remarkable, just absolutely remarkable. It's not just her; there are other ones, and the families are like, well, that autism center is going to give me a bigger kickback than yours, so I'm going to them. Not, oh, you're trying to bribe me into doing this, so I'm going to go report you to the government because that'd be the right thing to do. No, it literally, the community consents to the crime, which is why they didn't report it.
So in one job that I had in Lebanon, I was offered a bribe. Mm-hmm. I was new at it. And the guy understood quickly that if he did that again, I'd take him out of the car and beat him.
Yeah.
Then I realized that he had told the accountant of the company that I was working for that he'd offered me a bribe and said no, leading me to conclude that the accountant was also in on it, that I was supposed to take the bribe and then the accountant would come and collect his share.
Yes.
So that's how this kind of bribery actually works.
Yeah.
It's done, everybody is involved, and I was the idiot for not being involved.
Yes. And that's literally what they're saying here. Like,
yes, pretty much.
I mean, literally, you give us a kickback, well, they're going to give me a bigger kickback. Why would I go to you? I mean, good point. The market demands, right? But what I love is this last paragraph at the bottom here, right? Hassan's fraudulent scheme resulted in Smart Therapy obtaining more than $14 million in reimbursement funds from Minnesota's DHS and UCare. And she split the proceeds of the fraud schemes with her partners, as of course you would. High trust society. Yeah. And Hassan herself sent hundreds of thousands of dollars in fraud proceeds abroad, some of which she used to purchase real estate in Kenya.
Not in Mogadishu.
Not in Mogadishu.
No.
Weirdly, she didn't buy the property in Somalia.
Yes.
That's just very interesting, isn't it? And so that's one scheme that is just emblematic. As you can see, they we'll just crank up to max. We'll just literally make the maximum amount of claims that we can make, which in and of itself is suspicious. Idiots. And the entire community is like, okay, great. Where's my kickbacks? Where's my money? Where's all of this, right? So there are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of people implicated in this, but it's just her that's been punished.
Yes.
The community they know they're guilty of this. Yep. Just one person punished, and that's just in one case, right? The next case is the Feed Our Children fraud of Feed Our Future scheme. This was during COVID for $250 million. Again, you can see how they're estimating more than $1 billion has been defrauded out of this because they're just going mad for it. So this is Sarah Nur of Minneapolis, who got 51 months in prison. That's only 4 years and 4.25 years in prison for a $250 million fraud scheme that exploited this program during the COVID-19 pandemic. Between September 2020 and April 2021, she claims to have served over 1.2 million meals to children from SNS Catering, which is her company.
1.2 million meals?
There are just under 6 million people in Minnesota in total.
Yeah.
425,000 in Minneapolis. Like, how many starving children can there possibly have been in Minneapolis?
Yep.
Between December 2020 and December 2021, their sites reported serving more than 8 million meals through the food program. And so they made all of these requests for funds from the American government and, quote, misappropriated the funds for her own personal benefits, such as commercial real estate. So it doesn't tell us where this commercial real estate was, though.
This is what makes me think that senior Democrats were also involved. It was a $250 million fraud scheme. She was ordered to pay back just $5 million.
Yes.
So 245
gonna get to
million
that as well.
are somewhere else.
Yes.
And
Presumably outside of the country.
Yes, and the way that these things work is that the more senior you are, the sort of, more certain you are to get a cut.
Yep.
So where did the other $245 million go?
Well, again, presumably remittances back to Somalia or somewhere like that. Anyway, 5 other people were convicted of this. Do you want to have a guess at their names?
Muhammad, and Ahmad, and Noor.
4 of those are Mohammeds. One of them is not a Mohammed.
Okay.
Abdizaz, actually. Yeah, Abdizaz, Mohammed, and Mohammed, 35, 51, 23, 33, and 27 respectively. And 70 other defendants have been charged by the Attorney's Office in the District of Minnesota across 14 indictments and 6 criminal informations. 18 have already pleaded guilty. The investigation is not over, and today's verdict highlights the large-scale fraud of this scope and nature will not be ignored. It's like it was ignored for years, but
Obviously.
Glad that this is finally coming out now. But again,
And if they got a 4-year sentence for a fraud that's worth,
250 million.
250 million, that's a freaking good investment.
Yeah, that is a hell of a good investment.
I mean, 4 years in jail and you come out with hundreds of millions of dollars.
I'd take it.
So, it's
Ilhan just, Anyway, so this has been going on for years. Of course, this didn't just begin then. As former Minnesota State Representative Jason Lewis points out, in 2014, Somali daycare fraud was a major issue, and apparently $100 million was missing because they just tell the state that they're doing the services, and the state's like, well, we want to provide daycare or food or whatever it is, and here's the money. And I mean, in the previous one, they said, well, parents would just drop their kids off and they just basically leave them in this room, and then they pick them up in the evening. It's like, okay, so this has been going on for years, back since 2014. This is a congenital issue in this community. They just, if there's access to money, they're going to get hold of it. And John Kennedy accuses another senator has accused Democrats of blocking investigations into the fraud. I said, well, yeah, maybe they did, because the Minnesota Attorney General came out and said, well, hang on a second, guys. We can't use incidents like this to score a political point. We shouldn't politicize this. And it's like, well, okay, I mean, it seems that it's expressly political,
but it is political to them, and it is tribal to them.
It's only Democrats. It's only Democrats with a particular community, and it's only Democrats with a particular community that they themselves have politicized. Like Jacob Frey came out and said, "Well, you come for one of us, you come for all of us." It's like, okay, well, you're turning that community into a political agent in your current political climate.
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, well, we shouldn't politicize this. It is political. You brought in a bunch of people who are prepared to defraud you for billions of dollars, and they seem to be kind of shameless about it. Yes. They don't seem to be ashamed of this at all. And they're doing it to prop up their country, meaning that the money that they steal from you is almost half of their own country's economy. Like, this is preposterous, right? And the thing is, like I said, they don't even seem shameless. So when Ilhan...
they say it out in the open.
When Ilhan
She's very explicit about it.
This is the funniest thing in the world. We're going to watch this clip because it's the funniest thing in the world. Because she's basically laughing in the faces of the people watching this when confronted by this.
Of the 87 people charged, all but 8 are of Somali descent. And that has added to the spotlight being put specifically on your community. Why do you think this fraud was allowed to get so widespread?
Well, I want to say, this also has an impact on Somalis because we are also taxpayers in Minnesota. We also could have benefited from the program and the money that was stolen. And so it's been really frustrating for people to not acknowledge the fact that we're also, as Minnesotans, as taxpayers, really upset and angry about the fraud that has occurred.
This is very much the Norm Macdonald meme.
Exactly.
That's exactly the Norm Macdonald meme.
Yep.
Imagine if, some Islamist terrorist blew up a nuclear device in New York City. What would be the consequences for Islamophobia?
I mean,
it's just...
It is hilarious. It's been really frustrating because as taxpayers for $625, we only made however millions that we defrauded out of the state.
Think about it this way: they were paying $600 a year in taxes, and they got $300 a month at least per child
from the kickbacks.
That's a great investment.
That's an amazing investment.
That's wonderful returns.
Like I said, they may not be academically gifted, but they're not stupid. But you'll notice when she's saying that,
there's this grin.
There's this grin on her face.
Hide.
Yeah. Like, here we go. Yeah. Like, oh, look. Yeah. We're taxpayers.
We got you.
Yeah. It's like, do you think I think for a second you think of yourselves as taxpayers?
Wasn't there somebody saying that her net worth has now climbed up to 30 million? Or something like that?
Yeah, it has. She attributes it to her husband's businesses, though.
Yes. Is he involved in daycares?
No. Actually, it's like a vineyard and a few other things.
Okay.
But the point is, no one. I mean, notice her framing as well. Like, oh, well, the Somali community could have benefited from that money that they defrauded. They did. They absolutely did. Like, what are you talking about? Of course you did, and you did, and everyone can see straight through this.
It's impressive shamelessness.
That's the point, isn't it? It's so goddamn shameless that you just can't get over it.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.